Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Creative Belief. I'm super excited for today's conversation with our guest, Ethan Karr. Ethan is a good friend of mine who works for the Walt Disney Company. And before we get into today's episode, we just wanted to let you know that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of Ethan Karr's and do not necessarily reflect those of the Walt Disney Company or its affiliates. Any references to his work are based on personal experience and publicly available information. All right, let's jump into today's conversation with Ethan. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Creative Belief. This podcast is a curated collection of conversations with creatives who believe that creativity can change the world. My name is Alex. I get to be one of the co-hosts of this show, and I'm here with my good friend, my business partner, Josh Day. Josh, how's it going today?
Dude, it's going pretty good. Just nothing new and really too exciting, but definitely excited about our guests today for sure. And excited to see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, super pumped about who we have on the show all the way from Burbank, California. We've got Ethan Karr with us today. Ethan is a senior specialist of employee communications and engagement for the Walt Disney Company. I got to meet Ethan through a job hiring process at an organization that I was a part of. Ethan turned down the job, and I'm still not over it. But we've been able to stay friends. And I've loved getting to watch like where you've ended up. And I think you've ended up where you needed to end up. And I can't wait to talk about creativity with you today. Ethan, dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And crazy how the world works and how everyone can make connections and keep up with each other. Thank God for technology.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Through like one job application, drive up from Nashville, and now on a podcast together. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Happy to be here.
Crazy. Good, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Ethan. And this is my first time meeting you, so great to meet you. I'm excited to get to know you a bit, and thanks for hopping on with us. But I like to start every episode just getting to know our guests a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your backstory, some things that early on sparked creativity in your life, or that kind of unlocked that a little bit for you, and maybe how that's kind of led you to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. Pleasure to meet you. Likewise. I grew up in Jacksonville, Illinois, which is a small little town in the middle of the state, about 17,000 people. I like to say it's a small town with a big heart. Wouldn't necessarily move back in this phase of life, but there's nowhere else I would have rather grown up. If you've ever used a hefty plastic bag, ridden a Ferris wheel, or used Nestle coffee creamer, those are all from Jacksonville, Illinois. So,
okay,
little
look
fun
at
that.
I've been there. I grew up in a small town in Illinois as well. So in Leroy, Illinois.
No way.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yep. What took you to Indy from Leroy?
Oh, it's wild. No, not really wild. But my wife and I met in college in Ohio. She's from Kentucky, right. And then we were like, man, we'd love to kind of split the difference between our families a bit, and moved to Indy like 12 years ago, I think it was, and been here since. So
that's great. I think going back to your initial question, I think what first sparked creativity at a young age, probably around 4 or 5, was animation, was drawing. If you were to go back to my childhood bedroom right now, you'd find 4, 5, 6 sketchbooks just full of Disney characters, failed attempts at drawing Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. I was a big soccer guy. So that's kind of what sparked my creativity at first. And it's obviously changed over the years, but the concept of storytelling and the fact that humans can create something as marvelous as Aladdin or Nemo by just their hands and a pen awed me as a kid, still does today.
That's awesome. And I mean, I think it's very fitting with where your career journey has landed you, where you've ended up, right? Like, I think that's kind of that dream story. That's awesome. Yeah, I love, all of us have those like things as kids that really sparked that. So dude, talk us through a little bit of like, how did you end up where you're at? Cause I know like you and I met, you were wrapping up college, finishing that kind of whole world and figuring out like where your career was going to go. So talk a little bit about like that journey, kind of the passion and really like getting into the world of writing specifically.
Sure. Yeah, man. I think, how did I get here? I've been networking since sophomore year of high school, frankly,
Okay.
with Disney employees. I have a Google Doc somewhere deep in my Google Drive of everybody I talked to, their contact information. And I was just trying to learn more about the company, what people did, and obviously establish my name so that when it came to applying for a job later on down the road, I would have some exposure.
Yeah.
I always thought that would be in Florida. I grew up going to the parks in Florida. So to be out in California is a bit of a different change for me, but it's been nothing short of incredible. I think the game changer for me getting this job was actually my previous job, where I was in Florida, but I was working in marketing in private aviation. There's a company called VistaJet. If you've ever watched Formula One, they're the team that sponsors Scuderia Ferrari, flies them around. So
Yeah.
great experience there and working with big brands like Ferrari, like these big luxury organizations, Le Labo, et cetera. And that helped to establish my portfolio, I think, to get me to Disney. Because even when I was working at VistaJet, I was still networking for Disney. That was just my childhood dream.
Yeah.
And I think for writing, I'm not really sure where that sparked. My last job was a bit more creative. I worked a lot on the internal side of things, but had exposure to photo shoots and graphic design. So I think writing came from me personally. I just found that after a long day at work, there's nothing more comforting to me than a pen and a paper.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's been cool to see that play out, right? If you follow Ethan on Instagram or like get connected with him, and you should after this episode. I love like the writing stuff that you post that is just like reflections after a day, right? Gratitude journal posts, stuff that's just kind of coming out of you of this like creative endeavor. And I think for a lot of people, they're like, no one wants to see my like writing about this encounter I had with this person that I met on the street. But I think for a lot of people, that's a really inspiring way to unlock their own creativity, right? Like that's the whole goal of this podcast. Josh and I are not the best talkers and probably podcast hosts in the world. Our goal is to have conversations with really interesting and creative people to help everyone who listens unlock their creative potential and realize like they were made to create something incredible. And I think that's something that you're doing in your personal work of writing and sharing that content on social media.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that means a lot. I think there are so many interactions we have that are seemingly mundane on a face level, but I think deep down they're far from it. And to be able to expose that and expose the humanity in other people through something like writing is a beautiful thing, because I think the sky's only the limit from that point on if you can get inspired by something like that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of the common like threads and stuff we've been seeing in conversations is like how much creativity is personal. And at the end of the day, like you have to do it for yourself, like you have to, and there's different things that, we all have clients and different things that we probably put out there that we're like, I don't know if like my design touch or my words were exactly what we ended up pushing out. But at the end of the day, like you got to do things for yourself too. Right. And there's so many ways to get your work out there or not even like, I know I've done things too, where it's just like, I'm just doing this because I want to do it. And I don't necessarily need to show anybody, but it leads to other things too, right? Like it leads and it kind of like unlocks this other part of creativity that I don't know, may not even really knew you had or what, but like, it's so important to find those outlets and see where they go and see, hey, like this is something I am super passionate about now that maybe I didn't see myself really being involved in or a part of.
Absolutely. And I think that carries over dividends to your actual work. So if
Yeah,
you're working on a piece
definitely.
of graphic design and you are just hitting that wall, go do something you love 15, 20 minutes. Who knows what could be open from that?
Yeah, there's so
Um,
much to say about kind of like freeing up your mind a bit and kind of just like, dumping things out or just doing some mindless thing that really allows your mind to almost, kind of break through that wall, like you were saying.
yeah,
Yeah, and I've
absolutely.
I've talked a ton, right, in getting the opportunity to lead teams. I was always super encouraging to our team of like, hey, go have a side hustle, go have a
Mm.
creative endeavor that is outside your 9 to 5, because I think it makes you a better creative, right? Like when it's something that's passion related, you get to pour into it. When I was leading a team, I still got to work in the brand development space, running this business on the side. And it made me, I think, a more empathetic leader because I understood very intimately what our design team needed to go through and the challenges they were facing because I was doing that with my clients and with people that I was helping. I understood what our comm
Hmm.
team was dealing with and crafting the right language for this project or whatever, because I was involved in that. I was doing that. And it gave me new perspective because I was able to try things for the brands that I was working for outside of what the brand that I worked for full time could do. And so it brought a lot of different, I think, creative energy. I would say, I hope my team felt the same. It brought a lot of different creative energy to that space because we were all doing these passion projects and things on the side that I think
Yeah.
sharpened us and made us a better creative. Have you what has that been like for you in kind of all your different jobs, like running, across the country, Florida to California, and just finding
Mhm.
those like creative passion projects outside of your 9 to 5?
It's been a journey, that's for sure. I think I was very involved in my church back in Florida, and it wasn't necessarily something I got paid for. But what it did bring to me was the opportunity to continue to grow in my craft, in this case, photography. And I think way more importantly, help others in that.
Mm,
My favorite
Yeah.
days at church were shadow days in which someone may not feel like they have any skill or enough skill to be on the photography team. And it's like, listen, this is what you can do. This is what you can do. We can start here. We can move forward. And I think it is a beautiful thing to feel imposter syndrome and to
mm,
feel discomfort,
yeah.
because it's only growth opening up from there. So I don't think that should ever stop you from going into creative endeavor. Don't think it should
Yeah.
ever stop you. What it looks like out here in California is I've had a few side gigs for photography, and that's kind of been about it out here. But my job has allowed me to kind of dig deeper into graphic design, even though that's not explicitly a big part of my job. So I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And I love that, like that heart that you have for wanting to help other people, that feeling of imposter syndrome and just like sharing the skills you have, right? Like we all have
Yeah.
something to give and something to bring to the table. And so sharing the skills you have. Ethan, as you've gone through this like creative journey, landed where you're at, what's been some of the best creative advice, either that you've given or that you think you've given, or that's been given to you and you've passed that on to the people that you get to work alongside?
Great question. Gosh, there's been so much. I think one of the best pieces, and it's super simple, but it's to slow down. I
Mm,
think when we have a deadline, we feel the need to just attack it, which is great. It's fine. You want to deliver for the client. But at the end of the day, if that's going to hurt your work and hurt the outcome, perhaps that's not the best strategy in going about to complete this project. One of the, I think the tech in the day and age we live in is great in all that it provides to us, but we constantly live in a rush and we're constantly feeling the need to do the next thing and do the next thing and do the next thing without sitting in what we're working on, and sitting in the day by day. And I think to slow down, take a step back and look at your project and take all the time you need to complete it is one of the best pieces of advice that I've received and something I still
mm,
struggle with personally.
yeah.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
really good. I think that's like, and as you were saying, like it's this countercultural way of kind of going about things, right? Because
Mhm.
if you slow down, somebody's passing you up or somebody's flying by you, and it's really not like, it's not about that at all. And I think when we dive into our roles and our responsibilities and creativity within that, like the slowing down process is so important, right? Because like,
Mhm.
again, we talk about like kind of freeing our minds. We talk about these moments that like we feel so rushed by those deadlines that it just bogs us down, or it
Mhm.
just creates more barriers or issues. It reflects in our work, right?
Yeah.
Um, and those things can become real evident. And again, a lot of that pace can lead to burnout, right? Like it can just lead
Mhm.
to you in a place where you're like, I don't know how much longer I can do this, or if I want to
Mhm.
do this anymore. Like if this is
Yeah.
the lifestyle that I have to kind of run at this pace, and I don't know how long I can actually sustain this. And so
Yeah.
slowing down is huge for sure.
Mhm.
And I think, Ethan, to what you shared, I think there's this like feeling when we are on a deadline and we've got a client that we're delivering for, internal, external, whatever it is, that we are afraid to have the conversation as creatives of like, hey, could I get a little more time on this?
Yeah.
Right? Like we're afraid to ask that.
Yeah.
And sometimes like it is valid that we push the deadline too far because we've procrastinated, and so you never want to like mistreat the trust you have with the client. But I think the times where I just had a client, we're working on a brand development project. And I just said, hey, like, I'm just not satisfied with where this is at. And I don't want to
Mhm.
present something to you that's half baked. Can we move this meeting back by a day and a half? Give me some space to just sit with it. And then I refined it, and like, I didn't need to spend a ton of time with it, but I needed enough time to walk away and come back, tighten up what we wanted to present, and was like super happy with it. And then the client loved it, right? She was like, this
Mhm.
is it. We hit all the marks. And the project keeps going on. I think if I would have presented what we had on the first draft and hadn't had like I just wasn't feeling it. I think she would have been like, yeah, no, this isn't it. And then that starts to break trust, right? That starts to break down that barrier. And so I think as creative people, especially like high achievers who want to deliver and want to make people happy, which I think all three of us carry some of that. I think we have to get really comfortable with saying, hey, I just need a little bit more time. I need an
Mhm.
extra day on this. Is the deadline? Can we shift that a little bit so that I can do that? And when that becomes not a habit, that's not this abuse of the deadline. I think that can become a really healthy thing for us as creatives to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I would honestly say that's been my biggest takeaway since being at Disney is over promising, because
Mm.
there's always going to be something that comes up. One of the biggest examples would be the LA fires recently. Everything got pushed back quite literally 3 weeks. And for a week and a half, we genuinely didn't do much besides emergency messaging to our employees because of this big impact that this storm we had no idea would occurred.
Yep.
So to be able to overpromise and deliver your best to clients in a timely manner is great, but you don't want to harm yourself in doing so.
For sure.
Yeah, because life happens, man, right? Like
Yeah.
things
Mm,
happen, things out of our control happen.
yeah.
But I am real interested. This is a little off script, but I think it kind of goes with this a little bit of like, what's it like to have the to work under the umbrella of Walt Disney, such an established, known brand, um, globally, right? Like, and
Mm,
the pressure of that at the same time, right? Like, of maybe feeling like you always have to deliver, you always, have to knock it out of the park or go above and beyond. What's that like for you as a creative, as a part of that, but also like the people, your peers, and stuff that you work with?
yeah, great question. I think kind of circling back to imposter syndrome, I felt that a lot when I first arrived
Mm,
until I heard a quote that said, imposter syndrome doesn't exist. You just simply don't believe in yourself enough.
Hmm.
And that kind of changed the way that I viewed myself and the work that I'm doing for a company like Disney. And that I had to remind myself, like I said earlier, I've been working since sophomore year of high school to get here.
Yeah.
It's not it's a very long, very difficult process. So to not believe in myself enough was a big downfall for me at first. But I would say one of the beautiful things about working for a company like this with such an established brand globally are the people you get to work with, or the opportunities that come from it. And it really makes you slow down, not because you might feel like you need to, but because you have to. You can't afford to make such large mistakes on a message that's being sent out to 240,000 people. So for me, it's forced me habitually to slow down now, which is something I didn't know I needed at first.
Yeah, that's great. I think, and that's a huge takeaway, because I think oftentimes I find myself just like head down, going at it, trying to get this project done, and then on to the next one, and then like you were saying, it's like you almost have to be so intentional about planning that within your process, within your schedule, putting things on the calendar, like, hey, take this 10-15 minute break and do this one thing over here, and I think, like, for me, like, you really do have to be so intentional with writing those things down, taking those moments, because like we've said, like, they're so valuable. They're so important to you as a creative, as somebody in this field, especially when you're, you just feel like you're constantly going from project to project, or whatever it might be that you're doing. Those moments of just kind of relief and a break, mentally are so important.
So important. There's actually something called the Pomodoro method, and that's something I personally implement. And it is essentially, quite literally, scheduling times in your day to step away. Yeah. So what that might look like is an hour of work with no distractions, headphones on, set my timer for an hour. But at the end of that hour, I go outside on a walk for 10, 15 minutes, get a coffee, come back, another hour. Given there's no meetings, but that's something that I've implemented that has been not life-changing, but potent for sure.
Yeah, and if a Disney employee can do that, there's no reason nobody else should be able to, right?
There you go.
I was gonna say, yeah. and honestly, though, like, if you're in a creative field or any role that you're in and you're not able to do that, then, like, I would just say that's a red flag of, like, culture, and the grind culture that we've talked a lot about on this show so far. That, like, that's something you need to keep an eye on, because if you aren't able to take a 15-minute walk away, right? I came out of a culture where that was, like, really hard to do because we were in back-to-back meetings and deadlines were so tight. And having that now in my schedule where, like, I get to run this business, I get to be from home, I get to go. Right now in Indiana at the time of this recording, it's disgusting outside, so I'm not walking outside. Right? I think it's 13 is what my watch says, and it feels like it's -2. So super awesome.
Nice. It's 68 and sunny here, just in case you're wondering.
Okay, that's not necessary.
But, like, if you can't do that in your role, like, you need to address that, whatever that looks like. If it's not 15 minutes after every hour, a couple times a day where you are able to step away, right? If you're working through your lunch every day, you gotta address that, because those are the things that lead to not only burnout as a person, but, like, this feeling of, I don't want to create anymore, right? Like, those seasons can ultimately ruin those passion project seasons. And those times where you just go create for the fun of it, like, it can ruin all of that. And that's a miserable life to live.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important for young creatives to hear that, because I think you get into the thing and at least for me, like, my expectation or my perspective was, like, you just grind, like, you just do the thing and you do the next thing and you do the next thing. And you think that's the culture of, like, what I've gotten into. Right. And there's moments where I'm like, man, I just wish I could slow down, or it didn't have to be this way. And if you're a young creative and you're listening to this, or honestly, like, if you're in industry for a while, like you can have both. Like you really can.
Yeah.
Like you can have the grinded out mentality, but you also can have the times where you slow down, and those are so important and so precious to really have a part of your schedule.
Sure. And I almost think you have to be more intentional with it
Mm-hmm.
at a smaller firm, at a smaller studio, at a smaller company, in that the bandwidth is just simply not there. That's a luxury we have here that I never take for granted, but something I've experienced in past jobs, past internships, that I do feel more stress when the team is smaller.
Yep.
So pros and cons to every job and every
for sure
employee count. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Ethan, so let's talk. You're, I think, in an interesting role at the Walt Disney Company because you are in this internal communications space, right? And so you're really like crafting content for employees, crafting content for cast members, the team there at Disney. Talk about the creative process in that, because I think a lot of people would be like, you're just sending like Teams messages and communication to cast members. Like, why does that need to be creatively written? And I think that like, if it's not, right, my assumption is that really breaks down the value of the company as a whole. But talk about that whole experience and kind of working on a more like internal front and the value of creativity for the team that is creating these magical experiences.
Sure. I almost want to address that latter half first.
Yeah, go.
About the value of storytelling and creativity internally. What happens internally is reflected externally. And for a company like the Walt Disney Company that is known for customer service and going above and beyond in their products, whether that's the parks or ESPN or a movie, needs to have a potent, positive internal culture in order to deliver those. Yeah. So what we do internally, we put just as much work in, if not more, externally. And what that kind of looks like, I guess the creative process we take a lot of the times is first starting with research and data. So I like to say words speak, numbers scream. So we'll take numbers and kind of take a step back and say, okay, who's the audience we are addressing? Who's going to see this? What are the numbers or metrics we need to uptake, whether that's an email open or a piece of PR that's going to be external, et cetera? How do we get more views on this? So we establish the strategy first based on research. And then from there, we take things to perspective. And perspective is my favorite part because you have to think specifically about the audience. Is there going to be an executive that sees this? Is there going to be a global message here, or is this only going to be an APAC or EMEA? Will a blind person see this? Will a colorblind person see this? You have to address all of these factors and make sure they're implemented into the strategy. Before that, or excuse me, after that is the fun part, which is branding. From big scale, taking a step back, I think it starts with brainstorming and research, diving into perspective, and then going to branding.
Dude, that's so good. And again, like if a company like the Walt Disney Company is so focused on that internal branding and doing this whole project that you're working on around creating that ethos, like that should be something that we are doing in all of our companies. Because we really believe, like, part of why I'm so passionate about building brands that are built on belief is because we believe that that sets the tone for a company, right? Your brand, which is way more than logo, tagline, colors, fonts, like it is that platform for transformation. And that sets the tone for not just like who you are and how people see you, but like the culture of your company. And I think those things get so separated sometimes. People are like, oh, we've got to have killer culture. And like, we don't work on our brand. We haven't like touched anything on our website. We haven't created any new content, right? We're just kind of running the playbook and we've done it for years. And if you're not like in tune with that, then you're probably not in tune with ultimately how your company is performing, and what your consumers are saying and really experiencing from you, because they're just kind of getting the same old recycled creativity that isn't like fueled by a passion by your team because you're not pouring into them, right? Like if you're not pouring in to the internal, then the external is just going to suffer. And so I'm like, man, I love that. I can't wait to see what that does for your teams. And the teams that you guys get to serve. And like, that's critical for creating successful, healthy, creative brands.
Yeah, exactly. You said it so beautifully. And I think there's the dual aspects on our team of the business essential communications. So that's trying to think of a good example, annual enrollment for HR or International Day of Yoga, where, hey, cast members, we're opening up the entire park at sunset or sunrise, and there's going to be free snacks and merch, and you can do yoga in front of the castle. So it's caring for employees. Yeah, I would be there so quickly. It's caring for the employees and making sure they're felt and seen and valued while also delivering that business critical information as well. Right. And all of that takes creativity.
Yes. And I think like we've said in all of this, in this whole conversation, like your company can have both. You can deliver on the bottom line and grow a really successful company and also have an incredible brand that uplifts your employees and raises the bar for what creativity can look like. Like both of those things can exist. You just have to be willing to like make the necessary sacrifices, the things that like require the time and attention to do both. And I love that you guys are doing that and you get to be a part of that. Ethan, yeah, that's awesome, man. Let's talk about where you see the world of creativity headed, right? Because I think in my opinion, in one of the most innovative companies of my lifetime, you are working in kind of the pinnacle of creativity. I think a lot of people would say in a lot of ways, right? From films to animation to parks to merchandising to hotel experiences down to food and dining, right? Like the Walt Disney Company has truly been an innovative force in the world of creativity that I think a lot of us look up to and a lot of us are inspired by. And so where do you see the world of creativity headed in the next 5 years, getting to be kind of in the center of this like creative infrastructure, if you will?
Yeah, great question. I think, and this is something this is something Disney pioneered that is being taken on by some of our competitors like Universal, Six Flags, etc. But immersive experiences are going to be a pinnacle for creative companies moving forward. I think that one of the best examples was here celebrating the, I believe, 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live. They had this free exhibit you could walk through that was a recreation of the set and took you through a little museum in the history. And VR is not going to cut it anymore, I think, for immersive experiences. We want to see and feel and to be able to provide that to clients and customers and perspectives is great. On the other hand, I think we'd be naive not to address AI. AI is going to be / already is implemented in the creative process in many ways, whether that is ChatGPT to helping you write an essay, or a great example would be the Coca-Cola commercial during the holidays that was clearly AI generated. Yeah. So are we going to work well with AI and it's going to be our friend, or are we going to let it ruin the creative process and the humanity behind that? That's something we'll have to be careful with moving forward.
Yeah, that's really good. I love you already see so much of the immersive experiences, and I think it even speaks to AI a little bit too, because while AI is super helpful, there's still this aspect of like experiencing and touching and creating and feeling and emotion that it's going to be tough for AI to match. And I think that's important. And maybe becomes even more important the more that AI just advances and stuff. I think going back to strong emotional story and like things like that might become even more valuable. Ethan, this has been great. I think it's so cool to have somebody here on Disney, because I think like I would bet that so much of people that are like super creative were inspired early on by something that Disney probably had their hands on, right? Like a Disney movie. Man, I remember so many movies, Disney movies growing up. I remember going to the parks, and you're just in constant awe, right? And it just makes you feel just like in another world. And as a creative, I think so often growing up, like there were times where I didn't feel like I fit in, but then you see, like, you experience what Walt Disney has, whether through an incredible movie, whether through their parks and experiences. And you're like, yeah, like this is real. Like this is real and tangible. And I can exist here as well. And this has been great. What's on the horizon for you personally or professionally? I know you mentioned like a little project you were working on that you couldn't talk much about, but if there's anything that you'd love to share, just about what's going on with you or what this next year looks like for you.
Sure. Yeah, I think on the horizon, if the stars align, I would love to write a book. I think a small coffee table book, inspirational, philosophical, kind of adjacent to my journals that you mentioned earlier, Alex, on Instagram. Just a feel-good little book that you can read at a coffee shop and disconnect for 5-10 minutes. Maybe get inspiration from. That's something I'm working on. And then I think professionally, I'm at a point where I've been at Disney for a little over a year. And I've been able to, from a corporate level, look at all of our different segments and global offices and possibilities here. So what it looks like for me professionally moving forward is maybe some potential internal movement. I would love to work for different departments of this company, perhaps in different areas, but we will see. We will see. I think the book is more of a priority right now. I'm very thankful to have the job that I do, so I don't want to speak too much in the future. Yeah.
No, absolutely, man. That's awesome. And again, like I just love that passion project, that creative pursuit, wherever you're in, even when you're working in an incredible company like the Walt Disney Company, and I know that you love your role. I'm sure there are days that are like tough and frustrating. But like you get to be in a space that you've dreamed of, and to still want to have those creative expressions outside of that, I think is so critical. So Ethan, dude, this has been awesome. Josh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, on those days that are hard, at least I would just say, like, just remember, at least you don't work with Alex Holt. So,
wow. Gosh, that's what, oh man, he had the opportunity and he turned me down.
Said it on the tee right there. He was wise. He was wise beyond his years.
Working with Alex Holt would be a pleasure beyond words.
As somebody that has done it, no.
Get out of here. Ethan, I'll Venmo you as soon as we're done here.
Perfect.
Well, dude, seriously, this has been awesome. Thank you for taking the time. Thanks for getting up and chatting with us today. This has been a huge blast, and I think a ton of people are going to learn a ton and be inspired by what you're up to and just the wisdom that you've shared with us over the last little bit.
I appreciate it. The pleasure has been all mine. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, and it means a lot you'd have me on. So thank you.
For sure, man. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Creative Belief. We hope this podcast has reminded you that you were made to create incredible things that can make the world a better place. So go out and create something today that does just that. And we would love to have you continue to join us on the show. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also follow what we're up to at our design studio on Instagram. That's at Creator Studio, at CRTR Studio. We'll be sure to link to Ethan, how you can get a hold of him if you want to connect, his Instagram handle, all that stuff in the show notes. And until then, we'll see you on the next episode.